thing he conserved was big government. I don't want to do that. I want to do what Ronald Reagan promised to do, or Barry Goldwater. Actually shrink government. Because at this point, if we don't do it, the crisis is going to be phenomenal. And I am very afraid as an American. You see, whenever there's a crisis, I got to be running out of time. Whenever there's a crisis, we lose our liberties, we lose our freedoms. The government gets bigger. The government blames the crisis on capitalism, and then they use the crisis to usurp additional power. And since things are going to be so bad, I'm very fearful about what additional rights we might lose and what additional powers the government might usurp based on what I know the country's about to go through. So hopefully if I can get elected in 2010, maybe it'll make a difference. Maybe it'll send a message to the other senators that things are changing. Maybe it'll encourage other people around the country to run in 2012. Because it's important that we retake this government. Not only do we need to make sure that Barack Obama loses, he needs to lose in a landslide. And we need to send a lot of congressmen and senators home with him. And we need to replace them with people that understand the proper role of government and what government needs to do and what the country needs to get out of this crisis. Anyway, let me take a couple of questions. I think I've used up my 10 minutes, but thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah. You mentioned a change in accounting rules which allowed companies to view the assets as not as...
Sure, the banks no longer have to market their securities. So, for example, if a bank has a mortgage on its books, as long as that mortgage is current, it can pretend that it still has the same value as its face. But obviously, let's say I'm holding a second mortgage on a property, and the first mortgage is $500,000, and the property is only worth $300,000. I mean, what's the odds that that second mortgage is going to be paid off? I mean, maybe the guy is paying it now, but I mean, the chances of me collecting on that are practically zero. Yet I can still account for that asset on my books at cost. That's nonsense. It's a fiction. And that's part of the problem. But the politicians don't care. They want to preserve the illusion. Meanwhile, a lot of these banks that are basically insolvent because the government's keeping them in business, now they're getting even more deposits. So when they eventually fail, it's going to cost the taxpayers more money. We have to get out of the business of creating moral hazard. This whole thing about too big to fail, the minute the government makes a company too big to fail, it gets even bigger. Because now capital flows to that company at the expense of smaller companies that might actually have sounder balance sheets and be better credit risks. But if they don't have a government guarantee, they don't get the capital. If the market has to be allowed to function, credit has to be allocated without government guarantees. And that's across the board. Right now, 96% of all the mortgages in this country are guaranteed by the government. That's crazy. Why is the government guaranteeing mortgages? Why can't people borrow money based on their own credit quality? Because nobody will lend, because the prices are too high. We need to allow markets to clear and understand that when governments interfere like this, it doesn't work. Socialism didn't work in China, it didn't work in Russia. It's never worked anywhere, and it's not going to work here. Any other questions? Anyway, I got a website if you want to visit it at schiffforsenate.com. Visit that, or go. If you put my name, Peter Schiff, in YouTube, you can watch. There's 10,000 plus videos. There's conferences. If you want to see a really good one, type in Peter Schiff Mortgage Bankers and watch a presentation I did. It's about an hour and 15 minutes in front of the Western Regional Mortgage Bankers Association, about 3,000 mortgage bankers in Las Vegas in 2006. There's another one I did at the Von Mises Institute it's another hour presentation on why why the crisis was, why no one should have been surprised by the crisis. There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube if you really want to see how I think and the things that I said in the past. And there's I've written a lot of stuff on the internet as well. There's hundreds or thousands of essays that I've written that are online as well as my book. So there's a lot of information to understand how I think the way I do and what I'd likely to do as a senator. But thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. We will now